but they have been working on a wartime footing to prepare it.
New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. Meantime, in Connecticut, Governor Ned Lamont ordering all of his state schools closed after Monday until at least March the 31st. Federal Reserve taking emergency action Sunday aimed at helping the economy withstand the coronavirus. The Fed slashing its benchmark interest rate to near zero, saying it would buy hundreds of billions of dollars in Treasury and mortgage bonds. Those moves seen by many as a warning that the viral outbreak will depress economic growth in the coming months. Thousands of passengers forced to wait in line for hours at some airports due to coronavirus screenings before being allowed back in the U.S. O'Hare Airport in Chicago, one of 13 airports being used to return passengers from overseas after a White House travel ban.
Thousands of travelers were forced to wait in exceedingly long lines, congregating in concourses and putting themselves and their loved ones at greater risk of exposure of COVID-19.
Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine ordering all restaurants and bars closed, but allowing carry-out and delivery. Similar orders in Illinois and New York City as well. Former VP Joe Biden saying Sunday night that he's committed to picking a woman as his running mate if he wins the Democratic presidential nomination. Biden making that promise during a debate with Bernie Sanders. Sanders saying that he'd also select a woman, quote, in all likelihood. America's listening to Fox News.
Masatik ang nabangku sa mega servisyo Bank Pacific Ihot trabangku ramas Ami hali Viva Bank Pacific.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is now introducing an at-table all-you-can-eat breakfast menu from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday. Enjoy some quality time with your friends and family with some of your favorite local cuisine, from their waffle, hotcakes, and French toast station to their eggs and omelet station and a variety of scrumptious desserts. Weekends at Mezcla Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel just got hotter. New year, new menu. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Some restrictions apply.
At least 60 people are dead in the U.S. due to the COVID-19 virus. Over 6,000 deaths worldwide. President Trump calling on Americans to stop hoarding groceries and other supplies, saying he has talked with leading grocery store officials and that the food supply chain remains healthy. This is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention saying gatherings of 50 or more people should be canceled or postponed throughout the country for at least the next 8 weeks. Gasoline prices take a big hit as the coronavirus keeps people off the roads.
Hand sanitizers and other disinfectants may be running scarce, but gasoline is in ample supply. And as a result,
gasoline prices are crashing. In this 3-week period, they're down 15 cents to $2.39 for regular grade nationally.
Industry analyst Trilby Lundberg tracks prices nationwide.
There are quite a few cities with prices below $2. The low in our survey is Tulsa at $1.82. The high is Honolulu at $3.45.
And while the coronavirus continues to disrupt daily life,
we expect that prices will plummet on lack of demand.
Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Local leaders hoping the eventual end of the coronavirus spread does not coincide with a recession.
As long as the federal government in the state and the cities across America stay on top of it and address this crisis immediately, that when we get to the other side of this concern, this healthcare crisis, that we have everything in place to get the economy up and running right away.
Boston Mayor Marty Walsh at a Sunday news conference. There is labor peace in the National Football League. The NFL Players Association approving a new labor agreement with the league. It features a 17-game regular season, higher salaries, bigger rosters, and bigger pensions for current and former NFL players as well. The new deal running through the 2030 season. The deal was accepted last month by the 32 team owners. Player ratification required a simple majority vote. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
At the mall, as you enjoy your shopping, dining, or entertainment, you could also win 3 great cars from Atkins Kroll and thousands of prizes in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game. Present your mall receipts and have a chance to win the renowned performance Chevrolet Camaro, the unapologetic rugged Toyota 4Runner, or the head-turning Lexus ES350 Luxury. Getaways to Manila, courtesy of Philippine Airlines, plus prizes from Foot Locker and Burger King. The more you shop, the more chance to win in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Even in these days of coronavirus, the Second Amendment is strong, and it holds that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I start the program every day that way, rain or shine, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, coronavirus or no coronavirus, just to help us keep grounded on the things we think are important. The United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, similar considerations. Having given a necessary obeisance to the Second Amendment, I move now to that portion of the program known as Demi Ikotni. This is that portion of the program where I'm hypercritical of the Pacific Daily News for almost never running local editorials. Today is no exception. Gannett News Service again. And because there's no editorial in the Daily News, the Post doesn't have a whole lot of competition. I therefore turn next to the Post. Governor Leon Guerrero has banned social gatherings for large groups of more than 100 per event. Now, if you wanted to have an event of 100, I hope that you've done it, because the ceiling has now dropped to 50. And if you want to do that, probably you need to hustle, because it may be 25 tomorrow. The Wednesday night market has been suspended. Mayors have canceled public activities such as fiestas and community events involving large groups. The use of government gyms for big crowds has been suspended. There are still unanswered questions about big weddings, conferences, and parties in hotels and whether the ban applies. Well, I'm going to stop here and say there is one area or one place on the island that is not questioned or questionable. I'm going to announce right now that there will not be a live studio audience for Tall Tales until further notice. So I can take a hint. No live studio audience for Tall Tales. Facebook, still okay. Calling on the phone, still okay. And I've warned you before, once in a while I clear my throat or cough or something like that. Don't let that loudspeaker get too close to your nose. I wouldn't want you to catch any germs over the air. So Would Guam schools suspend in-classroom learning like many schools in the States have chosen to do? Yep, that's already happened. The Department of Education hadn't reached that decision as of Sunday afternoon, but it's reached that decision now. We heard of certain private schools considering the remote learning option. We've learned some individual schools are gathering about input from school staff and parent-teacher organizations on the possibility of remotely teaching students while they stay at home. We urge schools, public or private, to make this decision fast, and I think the governor made that decision already. I think the latest executive order number 4, closes all the schools. And considering the idea of remote classroom learning, we hope that students in homes that don't have online access will be taken into account. There are so many factors to weigh when considering shifting classroom learning to online only. But what matters most, what should be done soon to keep our students from being unnecessarily exposed to the rapidly spreading COVID-19 outbreak. And of course, we all woke up this morning to the news that this period of suspense is now over. We have 3 cases of coronavirus right here on the island. 2 of them apparently came in from Manila, brought it in from Manila. 1 somehow managed to contract the disease here on island. So the things that we've speculated about have happened, and now we're dealing with it. So the first item on my, well, let me get into the card here. I've got a couple not so serious items. This is just a scratchy throat. It's not something that comes from the lungs. I just need like a cough drop. So I'm going to start out with the airline counter. A D.C. airport ticket agent offers some examples of why the U.S. is in so much trouble. I love this, is the ticket agent actually names names. So you remember in number 1, I had a New Hampshire Congresswoman, Carol Shea Porter, ask for an aisle seat so that her hair wouldn't get messed up by being near the window. Number 2, I got a call from a Kansas congressman, named Moore, staffer, Howard Bollicky, who wanted to go to Cape Town. I started to explain the length of the flight and the passport information. They interrupted me with, "I'm not trying to make you look stupid, but Cape Town is in Massachusetts." Without trying to make him look stupid, I calmly explained Cape Cod is in Massachusetts. Cape Town is in South Africa. His response, click. Here's a really good one. A senior Vermont congressman, Bernie Sanders, called furious about a Florida package we did. I asked what was wrong with the vacation in Orlando. He said he was expecting an ocean view room. I tried to explain that's not possible since Orlando is in the middle of the state. Sanders replied, "Don't lie to me. I looked on the map and Florida is a very thin state." This guy wants to be our president. Okay, that's number 3. We'll come back. I've got 12 of these. I'm probably going to come back to number 3 every day, given my affection for Senator Bernie, the socialist Sanders. And then the first item on the card here is Tall Tales versus the Western Pacific Tropical Research Center Academy. The driver, or as you were an employee of which, drives a Mazda with Government of Guam license plate number 6761 as he drops his children off at Cathedral Elementary. Well, I guess this one is kind of overcome by events because there's no school at the Cathedral Elementary today. So whoever it is that drives 6761 won't have to break the law today. I'm sure that makes him happy. He's probably going to bring his kids to work with him. Okay, now let's talk about coronavirus. The next item on the card is Tall Tales versus coronavirus. So that means that I'm going to take on coronavirus head to head, eyeball to eyeball, and we'll see who blinks first. As I've already announced, there will be no more live studio audience for Tall Tales for the foreseeable future. And along the same lines, if you happen to see me strolling out about town, social distancing is what we must all do. So please avoid the temptation to come over and grab my hand and fangingi. Just a simple good afternoon, Sina, will be more than enough. So the social distancing is very, very important. Some of the people that I know will have very little trouble with social distancing at all. But anyhow, that's what I want to see. I would like to, once again, I want to see, I don't know if anybody else does, but I want to see an efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law, furnishing basic government services on at least a break-even basis. And I'd also like to see everyone take to heart this idea of social distancing, because the way the coronavirus works, the sad part of it is, like I mentioned the other day, in the beginning, it's hard to diagnose, but easy to cure. Later on, it's easy to diagnose, but hard to cure. So people can be wandering around in our community being able to communicate coronavirus to others and not be aware that they have it themselves. So if there are 170,000 people on the island, how many of those people does it take to communicate the coronavirus to you, just you? Do you know the answer to that, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sir, I don't.
Just one.
Wow.
That's all it takes. Yeah. So you may unfortunately run into that one person who is a carrier of coronavirus and doesn't even know it himself. So that's why the social distancing is so important. So Tall Tales, the official Tall Tales posture is, everyone, let's practice social distancing. All you need to do is schedule your day around 93.3, tune in to Ray at 6 a.m., set your dial at 93.3. You don't have to touch it again. Just leave it there all day. And such socializing as you feel you must do it online by posting pithy comments on the Tall Tales Facebook page, or calling Tall Tales and sharing your genius with the ever-popular host of Tall Tales, like our Carl is doing right now. I've just laid out these rules of engagement, and here's our Carl being very compliant right off the bat. Thank you, our Carl.
Hey, Bob, can you hear me?
Can I hear you? No, what did you say?
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the little sound thing go on when I was connected. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question. This is really interesting. I went to Payless Supermarket last night, Micronesia Mall Payless Supermarkets, and it was really fairly crowded. I mean, all the aisles were much more crowded than usual. The lines were a little longer. They may be even longer today. And I think we're again witnessing some stage of mass hysteria. There's a book that was written by a Mr. Charles Mackay, I think it was in the 1870s, called Extraordinarily Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it still sells extremely well today. It's a chronicle of many, many, many incidences of mass hysteria down through the decade since before the book was written, and I'm convinced we're seeing some of that in what's going on now. Not that I'm saying it doesn't need to be taken seriously, but there just seems to be a lot of overreaction. One thing I wanted to ask you, Bob, you're in a age bracket that is kind of at higher risk. I don't see you in your own apocalypse bunker. Why?
Carl,
why aren't you panicked?
I have an international radio listening audience. It is my major concern. I have got to make sure that I keep up my dialogue with that international radio listening audience every day. And if I have to make the sacrifice, you know I will.
Yeah, we were all holding our breath that you were going to come in, and I was pretty sure because you're a Marine, you know, so I didn't say former Marine, okay? I learned that's a mistake. You're a Marine, so I was pretty sure you're going to come in, like 99% sure. But it's just interesting to see what's happening, you know, and the different way people are reacting to this situation. The virus seems to be somewhat targeted as far as casualties, heavier weighted toward the elderly, I think 65 and above, especially if they've got pre-existing conditions such as lung problems, you know, bronchitis, maybe asthma. So especially toward that end, and very few casualties or deaths under 10 years of age for some reason. I don't know why that is. But I'm still learning as I go, you know, and I'm hoping you'll enlighten us about what you've read about it, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I'm still learning, you know, about it, and I'm curious what you found out and what you can pass on to us. So I'll just be listening for what you have to say about it.
Okay, Carl. Well, I'm glad to see that someone is already in compliance with my respectful request. So thanks a lot for signing up. Okay, I've got Bob Kelly on line 2. Good afternoon, Bob.
Sure. You asked an interesting question, and that is how many people does it take to infect someone? And you said the answer was 1.
I did.
But here's the one that's a harder one to answer. How many people can one person who is carrying it and has no symptoms infect?
Well, you know, I would ask someone over at Public Health to answer that question, but I already know what the answer is. They'd say...
We don't know. It could be a lot.
No, they'd say, we can't tell you that. It's a personnel matter. I would suspect, Bob, that a single person could infect almost an infinite number of people.
That's right. So if you had somebody with carrying it who did not know it, I mean, no malicious intent, but they just plain did not know it, but was able to carry it and transmit it, and they're going about their normal daily activities, they could be 20, 30, 40 people and pass it on.
And that's why this social distancing is so important.
Yes. I just wanted to give you the harder question to answer, which there is not a single number that we can come up with. It's going to be, and I'm sure there's people on Guam now who are probably carrying it. That's how we had a community transmission. So the person who gave it to the person that we've identified, how many other people got it?
Exactly. And it may very well be that Sunday was not really when the incident arrived. It may have been here for 10 days before that, but we just hadn't discovered it.
My understanding, I know a relative of the couple involved, a distant relative, but still in the know, and apparently they were hospitalized much sooner than that. They just got the test results back yesterday.
There you go. Yeah. Well, thanks for that hard question, Bob.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hello. Yeah, so I think some people will get a kick out of trying to ask the host of Tall Tales hard questions. I don't want to mention Jack's name, but I think you know what I'm talking about, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, so this is the Tall Tales credo. Please practice social distancing as much as you can, because although you know Mr. and Mrs. McClukenbach, and you've known them forever, and you always go to breakfast with them on Sunday morning, it may very well be that Mrs. McClukenbach is that anonymous, unknown carrier. She's not aware of it herself. So the best way to avoid coronavirus is to avoid other people.
And avoid McClukenbachs?
And avoid McClukenbachs, yes, to the extent that you can, yeah. I'm asking, or I'm once again communicating what I'd like to see. I would like to see the government of Guam test every single person on this island tomorrow. Because the sooner we get people tested, then the sooner we're going to be able to isolate those people who don't know, from the rest of us, and cut down the spread of the coronavirus. Now, I know that there are a lot of problems in getting the test kits and reading the tests, etc. But the fact that something is difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try to do it. If we're really serious about the coronavirus, that's what we need to do. We need to test everybody as soon as we can. And we have to be really careful about how you do it. You can't do the testing at a doctor's office or a hospital. Because let's take that carrier. Let's call him Mr. Carrier. No disrespect to the air conditioner company. Tomorrow, instead of calling him Mr. Carrier, we'll call him Mr. What's the name of another air conditioner company? Yeah. Well, Mr. JWS, right? Yeah, so Mr. Carrier, let's say that Mr. Carrier doesn't know that he's infected, but he's curious. He wants to know if he is infected, so he goes down to a doctor's office to get tested. Well, he does his testing, and in the process exposes probably just about everybody in that doctor's office to coronavirus. So he could take some comfort from the fact that he got his test, but no comfort from the fact that he exposed a lot of other people to the virus. Now, let's say that Mr. Carrier doesn't have the virus, but he wants to go down to the doctor's office to get tested. Where do you suppose the best place to find people who test positive for the virus would be, Real Joe Cruz?
Which one, sir?
At a doctor's office.
I see.
Yeah, so you don't have it, you go to the doctor's office, you have a good chance of getting it. You do have it, you go to the doctor's office, you got a good chance of giving it to somebody else. So from what I understand, the real danger, the real scary part of this is that if we don't handle this right, the number of folks who actually get sick from the virus. And a lot of people will even have the virus and not get very sick from it, not sick enough to stay home from work under ordinary circumstances. You know, we've all been through that one where you cough a little bit and you got a runny nose and you say, I'm not 100%, but I'm going to go to work anyhow. Maybe that's as sick as a person gets. And that's a lot of people that don't really get very sick from it. But there are some people who will get so sick from it that they'll die. And of course, one of those groups of people that is the most vulnerable is, as far as I'm concerned, the most important group of people on the island. You know who that is, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir. The Manamco.
E Manamco, ne? Yeah. Zaho e Manamco, ne? Yeah. So older folks are the most vulnerable, especially older folks that maybe are not in the best of health. A little bit of diabetes, some dialysis, heart condition, overweight, bronchitis, etc. So we may get, if we're not careful, we'll overwhelm our healthcare system to the point that the people who really need medical care are not going to be able to get it. That's why we need to spread this thing out over the longest period of time that we can. And we would do that by testing everybody. And once again, we don't test people. We don't tell everybody, hey, call up into your doctor and make an appointment to come down and get tested to see if you got the virus. What needs to happen, Governor Leon Guerrero, is you need to set up drive-through testing centers. So a person could pretend that, you know, kind of like the McDonald's approach. You drive up, somebody comes along and swabs your throat. You had that person some papers. You drive through, and as if by magic, within a matter of minutes, you get the test results. If we were really sophisticated, we could do it like they do Uber in the States. You download an app, put your credit card in the app. You would make your appointment with the app. You drive to the testing center. When you get there, they can recognize you because you've downloaded your license plate number. You get swabbed, and 15 minutes later, your test results appear on the app. That's the way we ought to be doing it. And it's possible. The technology's all there. We've got players on island that can do it. The chances that we're going to do it that way, I don't know. But the really important thing is that we've got to do the remote testing. We can't be sending people to doctor's office unless they absolutely have to go, because we don't want to run the risk of overwhelming the healthcare system. We don't want doctors, nurses, etc., coming down with the virus themselves because they've been exposed to it by people drifting in and out of their offices. So that's what I want to see as far as our approach to coronavirus is. I think what the governor has done so far is the right thing. Could have started a little earlier, but, you know, isn't that always the case? Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah. Now, I want to just take a moment here and talk about how they're doing it in other places. So I've got an article here from Newsmax, and it describes how they're doing it in the United Kingdom, which is a socialist delight. You know, in the United Kingdom, they've had socialized medicine since 1946. Why can't we have that? Well, here's the approach in the United Kingdom. They're considering herd immunity virus control. What is herd immunity? The strategy of the British government is to allow the virus to pass through the entire population so that we acquire herd immunity, but at much delayed speed so that those who suffer the most acute symptoms are able to receive the medical support they need, and such that the health service is not overwhelmed and crushed by the sheer number of cases to treat at any one time. The World Health Organization. What's the acronym for the World Health Organization, Real Joe Cruz?
WHO, sir.
How do you pronounce that?
Who? Who's on second?
You're too cautious, Real Joe Cruz. I can't suck you into any of my childish games. WHO on Wednesday, in effect, conceded there's no way of preventing the virus sweeping across Africa, Asia, and the Americas, which in practice means that it will be an ever-present threat to the UK unless and until a mass vaccine is available for use. The kind of coercive measures employed by China and Wuhan and Hubei have simply locked the virus behind closed doors of people's homes. And just as soon as the constraints on freedom and movement are lifted, their monstrous virus will rear its hideous face again. Herd immunity means that when enough people in a community are vaccinated against disease, it can make it more difficult for the disease to spread to susceptible individuals who have not yet been or cannot be vaccinated. But herd immunity only works if the majority of the population have been vaccinated against the condition. But a professor in infectious disease epidemiology at the University of Edinburgh told the news outlet that herd immunity can occur naturally. If you've been exposed to any infection, enough people have already been exposed to it, have developed antibodies, and they're immune to it. You can have natural herd immunity, and that particular virus will not be able to cause an epidemic in the population. It doesn't mean that it won't be able to spread, or there still will be some susceptible people, but it won't take off and cause an epidemic. But a newspaper called The Independent reported there's currently no chance of herd immunity with coronavirus. As a brand new virus, no one has immunity to it. So every human being is susceptible to the virus. Independent health writer Sean Lintern warned, herd immunity will only come into effect once a huge majority of the people had it and survive, so their bodies create antibodies to the virus. So I guess that's one approach. Try a little herd immunity. When you get to the point where there aren't enough hosts for the virus to survive, then you can claim victory and go back to business as usual. There's been a lot of talk about Lulian Guerrero and her approach to the virus in accordance with the law. And she has invoked, as you were, Chapter 19 of Title 10 of the Government Code. And I had an item on the card the other day where the governor threatened AMC with the takeover of their clinic. And little research shows that she could do that if she wanted. So let's talk a little bit of law here for a moment. Let's start out with the Organic Act. Yeah, good call, Real Joe Cruz. Let's get out those Law and Order notebooks. The Organic Act, Section 1421G, subsection A, Public Health Services. Subject to the laws of Guam, the governor shall establish, maintain, and operate public health services in Guam, including hospitals, dispensaries, and quarantine stations at such places in Guam as may be necessary. Here's a bad mistake. And he shall promulgate quarantine and sanitary regulations for the protection of Guam against the importation and spread of disease. Now, it says he, so I don't know. I hope there's a severability clause in the Organic Act, because you should just throw the whole thing out for using the wrong pronoun, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
When they drafted the Organic Act, what pronoun should they use instead of the he?
They.
Obviously, they should have used they, yeah. So, Organic Act gives the governor broad powers subject to the laws of Guam. The laws of Guam that we're talking about here are located in Articles 5 and 6 of Chapter 19 of Title 10 of the Government Code. And it's all there. All the things that Lou says she can do are there. She could take over a clinic. The way I read the law, she could pull up to American Medical Center, get out, walk inside, and say, I'm taking over this clinic. Please vacate the premises. You could take your purses and your lunch buckets and whatever else with you, but please leave right now. And then she could stock that clinic with people from public health or the hospital or Department of Public, as you were from the Guam Public Schools or wherever. She has that kind of authority. This morning I was talking with Ray on Tall Tales, and Ray said, well, what about this regulation that there can't be any groupings of more than 100 people. What about the Constitution? And the Constitution does speak exactly to that type of situation. We have Article 1, as you were the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble. So people have a right to peaceably assemble, but like all constitutional rights, it's not an absolute right. And if you study the law of peaceable assembly, parades, demonstrations, etc., you can't regulate for content. You can't say, we don't allow any demonstrations here in favor of Democrats or Republicans or the KKK. Let's take a short break here.
If you own a Toyota, please listen to this. It could help you avoid injury, maybe save your life. The Takata airbags installed in certain Toyotas can explode and shoot out sharp metal fragments at people inside the vehicle. You don't need to be in a collision. They could explode any time. In the U.S., these airbags have caused 26 deaths. There's been a worldwide recall of Takata airbags, and most have had the faulty parts replaced. But here in Guam, there are still over 3,000 Toyotas on the road with potentially lethal airbags, and yours could be one of them. So please, take your Toyota to Atkins Kroll, even if you didn't buy it from us, and get the inflator replaced. It costs you nothing, it takes just about an hour, and it could save a life, yours or someone you love. The AK song says we're here for life. That's never been more true.
At Atkins Kroll, we're here for life.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So, as I was saying, a peaceable assembly is subject to reasonable regulation, not as to content. You couldn't have a regulation or a statute or whatever that said no demonstrations here by the NAACP or the Ku Klux Klan or whatever. You can't regulate as far as content is concerned. But reasonable regulations as to time, place, and manner would pass constitutional muster. So the key words are something called the police powers. The police powers of the state to protect the people from danger, to regulate morals and things like that. And courts ordinarily, in the case of an emergency, will defer to the state reasonably exercising its police powers. So this morning, I was talking with Ray about this assembly of 100 people, and my analysis was that, and this is more than a figure of speech, if push came to shove and that group of 101 people didn't disperse, the governor could get the Guam Police Department to disperse the crowd or even call in the National Guard to do it. And the people who wouldn't disperse could be arrested. So the governor has a great deal of authority to deal with this pursuant to Chapter 19 of Title 10. Now, I did a little research to find out, because Jim Moylan said when he heard about it, he was quoted as saying, I don't know where the legislature was coming from when they enacted that 20 years ago. You know, it's really something. And here's where it came from. It is a model state law to deal with bioterrorism. And it was put together by people from George Washington University and Johns Hopkins University, not long after 9/11. Because if you remember the post 9/11 era, people were wondering, well, is this it, or is there going to be another one, or will there be some germ warfare, bioterrorism, or whatever? So this model act was put together by some scholarly scriveners, and somebody here, I haven't been able to knock down who the main sponsor was, but somebody here saw it, and I suspect said to himself, oh yeah, we ought to do that here. I could adapt that for Guam and introduce it here, and everybody will say, wow, Senator Smucker-Huckowitz is really up on things. And then we just forgot about it up until now. But that's how it got into our law books. It's a model act. Giving the governor great authority, which she has already started using. She's up to her fourth executive order. She's given some speeches, one of which didn't sit very well with the doctors, which where she said that, you know, I can take over your clinic and I've got all the power, et cetera. And at the end of her remarks, she says, don't worry, I'll be a benevolent dictator. And somehow, benevolent or not, people are not that happy with dictators. But once again, this is what I want to see. This is a serious matter. And our community is not going to be, our community interest is not going to be furthered by hundreds of jailhouse lawyers coming out of the woodwork to try to challenge everything that the governor does in dealing with the coronavirus. Even I will say that, being, I suppose, the first person that people think of when I say jailhouse lawyer. Not that I've been to jailhouse or ever have been, but so when the governor asks that these things be done, that the social distancing be done, et cetera, it would be a real good idea if we all kind of fall in line and do it. I'm peeking out of the corner of my eye here and see some things popping up on Facebook. Somebody said here, so too, Rob, I saw martial law in Chicago in 1968 rioting. I remember what the lefties called the police riot in Chicago at the Democrat convention, when the Democrats were going to nominate somebody who wasn't radical enough for the Democrats. So the, the Democrats were the best thing that the Republican candidate, Richard Nixon, had. I don't recall martial law being employed in Illinois at that time. I do require some pretty heavy police action. The Post goes on to say the governor bragged about how she had the power, but she didn't put the people who were coming off the plane into quarantine in February. That's very true. And had she done that, we might not have had those first three cases, because as I understand, the infectors got off the plane on February 29. So, very good point. Let me see what else I've got here on Facebook. Andrew has a cautionary instruction. He says, if I get too critical of the administration or the legislature, I might get hauled off by a couple big guys in hazmat suits. James Howard says, let's see, Frenchie, James Howard, Gus DeSangus, and then James Howard, Judge, how about Illinois State with a health emergency declared? They have banned sales of firearms, arming, ammo, and liquor. Can they do that? Could the governor do that in Guam? Now, what I read was it wasn't the state of Illinois, it was a mayor and I don't remember the name of the town. Putting that aside, could the governor do it here? I'd say yes. The governor could probably ban the sale of ammunition, firearms, and liquor. The statute gives tremendous power to the governor. The litmus is that what she does has to be geared toward stopping or dealing with the emergency. If she did something like that, it'd be a real lawyer's game, because you could bet that somebody would hire a lawyer to bring suit for an injunction enjoining the enforcement of that law. And here's an interesting little sidebar to this story. The governor's only got two lawyers, Sophia Diaz and the governor's son-in-law, who hasn't shown himself to be great shakes just yet. I don't know if the governor has coordinated with the attorney general on this or not. I don't know if the attorney general has been involved in the planning of this from the beginning, or if he's reading about it on the net like the rest of us. But if someone decides to make a litigation matter out of it, the skill and number of the lawyers you have on your side could have something to do with the outcome. So the Attorney General really has a key role here, either by what he does or going back to how Sherlock Holmes solved the murder case with respect to the dog. You remember what the dog did, Real Joe Cruz?
It's not what he did, sir.
What was it?
It's what he didn't do.
He didn't bark. That's right. So it could be that if Levin is the dog that doesn't bark, he could have quite an impact on any potential litigation that arises from this. James Howard says, do all of the testing at Government House parking and parking security. They have food, okay. And Denise the Gatsby says she saw martial law in Chicago in 1968 rioting, okay. The governor bragged about, okay, I've already read that one. Frenchie, and Denise comes back with a criticism because the governor didn't quarantine those people who are here from an infected area. We are now exposed. She should have done it in February. True enough, Denise. Let's take a short break here.
Hafaday, this is Jesse Cruz from Security Title. And in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here's a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of putting your child on the title to your property, but keep in mind, if your child is a minor under the age of 18, you will need a court order allowing you to mortgage or sell your property. Protege Itanomo. Protect your land. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, it just shows you the power of Tall Tales. I expressed my desire, and I just got a communication from the Archdiocese that Sunday and weekday masses have been suspended.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
I didn't expect that they would go that far, but the power of Tall Tales.
We could always do online church, sir.
That's true, I suppose. I don't know. I don't think it'd be quite the same, real joke.
True.
So, let's see. Where was I before the break? What was I talking about?
Coronavirus.
Yeah.
You were talking about the governor's powers and all that.
Yeah. So the governor does have the powers, and it's not going to be easy for any of us, especially the folks in the healthcare business. They're really going to be their mettle will really be tested. For the rest of us, our lives, for most of us, will be dramatically changed for the next how many months, I don't know. Probably in a week or so, I'm going to sit down with a sharp pencil and write up a little story about what it will be like when it's all over. Because some of the things that we're doing now, we're not going to stop doing. Things will never go back to the pre-coronavirus normal completely. There will be some things that we never go back to. There will be some things that we're doing now. We say we like it better. Why go back? And there will be other things that we will decide that we do want to go back to. As an example, something I don't really want to see is this idea of having school online. I'm too old-fashioned. I think that going to school, much of the learning is being in that school-type environment and sitting at home, looking at a screen, learning things is just not the same thing as being in a class with a teacher who helps you learn, kind of guides you, etc. And if this is true at all, it's true in spades when you have a teacher who uses the Socratic method, which is the method that I would favor. But I'm going to take the time to make my prognostication as to how things will be, what the new normal will look like after this is over. Because it'll end. You know, right now it seems like it's going to go on for a long, long time. And everybody's thinking, gosh, I won't be able to do that. I won't be able to go to the movies. I can't go to the senior citizen bingo. I'm not going to go to Mass this Sunday. The encyclical or the letter that I read said that funerals, etc., but I suspect that the emphasis at the funeral is going to be not to have the snack outside after the funeral, you know, which once again has a real heavy impact on the Manamco. Okay, so let's break for that. We're still going to have the halftime show, coronavirus or no coronavirus. We're going to do everything out there in that field that we've always done. So sit up there in the stands and enjoy it.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A stern recommendation. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. The CDC now recommending that all gatherings of 50 people or more in the U.S. be canceled or postponed over the next 8 weeks, of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic. This coming as health officials watch increasing numbers of cases and deaths.
If we have a worst-case scenario, we've got to admit it, we could be overwhelmed. Are we going to have a worst-case scenario? I don't think so. I hope not. What are we doing to not have that worst-case scenario? That's when you get into the things that we're doing. We're preventing infections from going in with some rather stringent travel restrictions, and we're doing containment and mitigation from within.
National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Dr. Anthony Fauci on Fox News Sunday. That CDC guidance coming as governors in Ohio and Illinois have ordered bars and restaurants shuttered. New York and Los Angeles ordering bars closed, nightclubs as well, and entertainment venues shut down. Restaurants staying open only for takeout and delivery. Schools shutting down in New York City and in Connecticut. Meantime, the Federal Reserve taking swift action Sunday aimed at helping the economy withstand the coronavirus. The Fed slashing its benchmark interest rate to 0.
That's a big difference. It's quite a bit, about a point. And in addition, very importantly, the Federal Reserve is going to be purchasing $500 billion of treasuries.
President Trump at the White House. Former Vice President Joe Biden making a major commitment on Sunday night.
There are a number of women who are qualified to be president tomorrow. I would pick a woman to be my vice president.
Audio courtesy CNN. Biden's promise of a woman VP coming during a debate with Bernie Sanders. Sanders saying that he'd also select a woman, quote, in all likelihood. That Democratic debate held in Washington, no live audience on hand due to the coronavirus outbreak. America's listening to Fox News.
Howdy. This is Jesse Cruz from Security Title. And in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here's a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of putting your child on the title to your property, but keep in mind, if your child is a minor under the age of 18, you will need a court order allowing you to mortgage or sell your property. Protehi itanomo. Protect your land. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Many states, including Ohio, upping their coronavirus testing.
Our testing is just now ramping up. For example, the Cleveland Clinic, University of Cincinnati, some other hospitals are just now basically coming online in their ability to test. So we're going to see the number of tests go up dramatically. But what I'm telling the people of Ohio, look, none of this should be a surprise. We know there's a bunch of people out there who are carrying this virus around.
Ohio Governor Mike DeWine on NBC's Meet the Press. Another major concern in the coronavirus battle, the capacity of American hospitals.
We have about 1 million hospital beds in this country, about 100,000 of critical care beds, 50,000 of those in medical intensive care unit beds. At any one time, most of those ICU beds are filled, and hospitals are about 70% occupied. So we don't have a lot of excess capacity. We also don't have a lot of capacity with excess respirators.
Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb appearing on CBS's Face the Nation. Israel using tough measures to try and slow the spread of the virus.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a mandate closing all public restaurants, cafes, and movie theaters in an effort to stop the spread of coronavirus here. The Prime Minister also announced that the Israelis would be using anti-terror technology to track coronavirus patients and release their whereabouts to the public. Israel's health ministry is now reporting more than 200 cases as a mandatory 14-day self-quarantine is in place for anyone entering the country.
And that's Trey Yingst in Jerusalem. The coronavirus depressing demand at the pump for gasoline. The Lundberg survey showing the average U.S. price of regular grade gas down 15 cents a gallon to $2.39 over the past 3 weeks. Analyst Trilby Lundberg saying that price could drop even further if demand lags. The highest average price in the nation currently, Honolulu, Hawaii. The cheapest gas, you'll find that in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory cut and pica. Your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local style oxtail kudu. Or Thursday if you're feeling that pan crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that miso yaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Friday. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call 969-2652 for your takeout order.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Well, even though we are supposed to be doing social distancing, we can't give up our big halftime show that we've been doing ever since at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to do it tomorrow, and we're going to keep on doing it. It's the best I can do. It's the least I can do since we don't have a live studio audience, and we won't have a live studio audience for the foreseeable future. So we're now in the second half of Tall Tales. I just have this feeling that I should be saying more about coronavirus, martial law, where we are right now, where I think we should be. I'm going to repeat for emphasis, we should be testing every man-jack among us. Everybody on this island should be tested, and not just once, but twice. We should practice social distancing, and we should perhaps get our leaders to emphasize the fact that we're all doing social distancing. We should we should be doing that testing at a place away from doctors' offices. We all need to take the responsibility to not go to the doctor's office, or the hospital as a routine matter, the way we used to. You know, just because that you're feeling a little bit down, well, I guess I'll go to the doctor and see what's going on. Because the real danger that we have here is overwhelming our healthcare system. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to run the risk of infecting medical personnel. We don't want to run the risk of just using so much of their time and space that they aren't going to be able to treat the people who really need treatment. So that's what I'd kind of like to see. I'm going to put Tall Tales versus coronavirus aside. I'm going to keep it on the calendar for the next several days, because I know there will be something to talk about as far as Tall Tales is concerned every day. I go on now to the next item on the calendar, which, were it not for the tenor of the times, would be pretty important, and that's Leavin Camacho versus Liberty Machines. And we know now that on Friday, March 13, Friday the 13th, a very unlucky day for gambling machine operators, Judge Art Batsinas ruled that those gambling machines should not have been licensed, that no gambling machines can be licensed, and that gambling machines are illegal in Guam. It's a pretty nicely worded opinion that I have here that I've actually studied as I was watching Law and Order. Thank you, Real Joe Cruz. Yes, as I was enjoying myself by watching Law and Order in the privacy of my own home. Yeah. So it's a 12-page opinion. It's very nicely done. And in addition to everything else, there is a really clear incident of kakistocracy. The opinion turns on the validity of regulations promulgated by the Director of Revenue and Taxation. The director did not comply with the administrative adjudication law. Therefore, when he sent the rules to the legislature, they could not and did not become valid. And because of the convoluted way that the legislature went about doing this, invalid rules meant gambling is illegal. And the judge lays out the fundamental principles of administrative law in a very clear fashion. And here's kind of how it works. The legislature enacts statutes. And ordinarily statutes empower a government agency, a director, to take certain action. But on the theory that the agency and its director have greater expertise in the area of the statute than the lawmakers do, rather than spell out every single detail of the statutory scheme, the legislature can say, enact rules and regulations in accordance with the following standards. And then the administrative agency can enact those rules. And if the statute is complied with, the rules become, in effect, law. But the standards have to be there, and the administrative agency has to jump through the hoops of the administrative adjudication law. This time, that didn't happen. So the rules were invalid, and therefore the licenses were not valid, and gambling is illegal on Guam. The kakistocracy comes in here. The Department of Revenue and Taxation, as you were the Director of Revenue and Taxation at the time, John Camacho, defended against the suit by the Attorney General based on rules, as you were, regulations that he had promulgated and submitted to the legislature. But guess what? Nobody could find the rules. The director said, well, yeah, we did it, but Nancy Pelosi tore them up. No. That's a new one. You know, it's not the dog. Sorry, teacher, the dog ate my homework. Nowadays, sorry, teacher, Nancy Pelosi tore my homework up. Yeah, so the Director of Revenue and Taxation couldn't find a piece of paper called Rules for Gaming Machines. And the legislature couldn't find a piece of paper called Rules for Gaming Machines. classic case of cacostrocracy, you know. Not only were the rules improperly done, but we couldn't even find them. So I guess that was the real gamble. So what happens next? Well, gambling machines are illegal. These Liberty machines, etc., these poker parlors that are all over the island, if they're still operating the machines, they're breaking the law. And in the way things are supposed to operate, agents from Rev Tax ought to go out and enforce the law. If nothing else, impound the machines, call the cops, arrest the people for violating the law, and so on. Now, I expect that the individual defendants, that would be Atlas Amusements, Daryl Stiles, and Guam Music, are going to move Judge Botzinas to stay his decision and order pending appeal to the Supreme Court. And if they do that, I expect that Judge Botzinas would grant that stay. So it might very well be another year before we see the disappearance of the machines. But this really changes the playing field for these machines on the island. The name of the case is Leland Titano Camacho versus Daphne Shimazu, Director, and I get this wrong again, Director, Department of Revenue and Taxation. She's not the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. She's the Director of Revenue and Taxation. Lourdes A. Leon Guerrero, the Governor. Atlas Amusement Enterprises, Inc. Daryl R. Stiles, DBA D&D Games. And Guam Music, Inc. It's an extremely important case that I'll be watching like a hawk as time goes on. Next item on the card is Titano versus the rest of us. And on the odd chance we've got a new listener here that doesn't know what that strange sound was all about, I suppose I ought to explain one more time. Excuse me. We have a senator whose name is Kelly Marsh. And whenever she puts her name down on anything, she puts it down Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis. So I like to be thorough if I'm going to refer to someone by his name. Usually I would refer to someone by his last name, unless he has a name like Real Joe Cruz. Then I would have to refer to him by his full name. But, you know, like a senator, if Real Joe Cruz were a senator, I would refer to him as Senator Cruz. So if I'm going to refer to Senator Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis, I probably should refer to her as Senator, parenthesis, Titano, parenthesis. But as you can see, this parenthesis, Titano, parenthesis, gets pretty tedious after a while. No one wants to sit around and listen to me say the word parenthesis over and over again. So what I have done is assign a sound value to the parenthesis symbol, so that rather than saying parenthesis, when I get to that in a text, I just use this sound value, and you'll know that what I'm actually saying is parenthesis. So here's how you say parenthesis. Thus we have a Senator Titano, right? So Jangen tautan ay fashion how go no after mano masangan ni naan si senador elect mo senador Titano sa pareho gifino English and gifino tomorrow. It means parenthesis in either language. Okay, so I did a little bit with this on Friday, and I don't think I finished it up. But I started out reading the definition of chauvinism, And I said that by the time I got done with Senator Titano Resolution 318, I'd have to come back and correct the definition of the word chauvinism. But this is the definition for chauvinism. The chauvinists' own people are seen as unique and special, while the rest of the people are considered weak and inferior. So, Resolution 318 starts out talking about, whereas the Guam legislature, duly elected by the people of Guam. Now, when you say duly elected by the people of Guam, which people do you think that means? I think it means all of the people, no matter what, whether they're male or female or something else, whether they're Chamorro, Filipino, Haole, or something else. Elected by the people means elected by the people. So this sentence says, the Guam legislature, duly elected by the people of Guam, sincerely embraces the responsibility to preserve, promote, and advance the native peoples of Guam and Marianas by being the guiding force which will light our path towards the healing and unity of our peoplehood. So somehow we went from the people, elected by the people, to native people of Guam and our peoplehood. And then she goes on to say, whereas our unity as a people, now is that the people of Guam or the native people of Guam? Our unity as a people will be realized in the partnerships and support of all entities whose missions align with this quest. So you have a chance. You can align with that quest or not. And this is the one I really like the best. Whereas this is the only place on earth where we can exercise our indigenous identity as Chamorros freely without encumbrance. The only place on earth. Now, if you parse that sentence and interpret it, what it means is that every place on earth except for Guam, there is an encumbrance to people exercising the indigenous identity as Chamorros. So I wonder what some of these encumbrances are. I wonder, like, if you went to the Guam Club at San Diego, there'd be a big sign there saying, Moganai man Chamorro, Gwini, or something of a similar nature, because everywhere else, because the way this sentence is worded, everywhere else, exercising the indigenous identity of Chamorros is encumbered by something. That's quite a mouthful. I really wonder what these encumbrances are. And she goes on to say, whereas all the years of dedication and passionate efforts of all past, P-A-S-S-E-D, past, like what happens to you when you're driving down the street and someone passed you, not 3 years ago was a time in my past. Cultural and language advocates has ripened and has brought us to the perfect season for harvest and begin planting new seeds from their tireless work. The inheritance of the spirit of our ancestors still resides in our hearts, in our minds, in our strength as natives of the Mariana Islands. This spirit will guide us forward. We must continue the force of the declaration of the Year of Indigenous Languages. I'll skip that part, go over to the next page. We are seeking everything in our power to heal and save what we have left of our peoplehood. in this day that we continue to endure suffering, hardships, and sacrifices to correct the injustices of the past. So, once again, we've got a prime example of grievance politics coming from the left in a cultural Marxist framework. Exactly what it is. Herbert Marcuse could not have done it any better. Antonio Gramsci would groove on it if it were written in Italian. Going on. The Mariana Islands is the land of the Chamorros that brings us together to make us one family. It strengthens our communities and allows us to plant the seeds for future generations. Our roots. Now, who is our here? Is that the people of Guam, that's the first one mentioned, or the second group? In our language, our values, our culture, our history, and the arts. So, and then there's some resolve clauses that I won't trouble you with, but I've got to come back here and correct the spelling of the word chauvinism at the beginning of this definition. Remember, chauvinism, the chauvinists' own people are seen as unique and special, while the rest of the people are considered weak or inferior. Do you get that feeling from reading this resolution, that one group of people is considered unique and special, and everybody else is considered weak or inferior? Well, that's why I put this on the calendar as Taitano versus the rest of us. So chauvinism is spelled C-H-A-U-V-I-N-I-S-M, but it should actually be spelled capital C, capital H, A-U-V-I-N-I-S-M. You've got to start a word that starts with C-H. You've got to capitalize both the C and the H. And that really makes everybody know that you're really special, because you don't understand the rules of capitalization and you've made up some special rules just for yourself. The chauvinists' own people are seen as unique and special, while the rest of the people are considered weak and inferior. Okay, we're going to go to the national scene here a little bit, and we're going to talk a little money and banking. In the news this morning, right along with the fact that we have coronavirus in our midst, Federal Reserve slashes interest rates to 0 as part of a wide-ranging emergency intervention. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome H. Powell discussed an emergency interest rate cut. The Fed slashed U.S. interest rates to 0 on Sunday in an effort to bolster the economy as it comes to a near standstill during the coronavirus outbreak. So businesses really slowed down because everybody is doing the social distancing thing. People aren't spending money. The economy has slowed way, way down. So the Fed's answer, the Keynesian answer is, well, what we've got to do is we've got to make money cheaper by lowering the interest rates. Well, the interest rate was 0.5% on Saturday, so they dropped it to 0%. Kind of hard to get it any lower than that, but I'm sure we'll figure out some way to do it. Let's break for the seventh inning stretch.
Sir, I have a report about the Guam Police Department will be closing both lanes of travel through Route 17, Santa Rita by Calvo's Chapel. There's a large grass fire in that area of Upper Heights.
I won't go that way, Real Joe Cruz.
Just wanted to let all of your listeners know.
Yeah.
Probably find an alternate route. It's by the Ray said it's by the Goodzeria farm.
Oh, okay. So we'll read that one more time before the end of the program. Okay. Rojo?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla has all your favorites this Lent season. Try their fish tacos, crispy fish burger, spicy garlic butter shrimp, or lobster pasta at a great price. Available for lunch and dinner at Mezcla. Visit them in Agotnya and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field, Chicago, Illinois. It's empty. There's no one in the center field bleachers. They're playing the baseball game, but the stands are completely empty. And let me see, what does it say on the scoreboard? Coronavirus 1, Chicago Cubs 0. Looks like the coronavirus won that game. And I'm just peeking at a sort of an internal communication here. I don't know if this is it kind of looks like a tall tale. That's why I kind of like it. But it says, due to the coronavirus, the Guam Police Department is asking that all criminal activities cease until further notice. Thank you for your cooperation in the matter. We will inform you when it's safe to go out and commit crimes again. Yeah. That's kind of a tall tales rap, isn't it? Okay, let me see what else I got here. See if I got some interesting stuff on Facebook. Yeah, Frenchie's talking about Illinois, and he said not the state of Illinois, but the Democrat mayor of Champaign, Illinois. Denise Legaspi, I was living there at the time. Nobody was allowed out after 6 p.m. I think she's talking about Chicago, not Champaign. I'm just cruising through Facebook here. Denise Legaspi shares with us, cough into the corner of your elbow or Kleenex. And Denise says, hugs Shelley Gibson and Pam. Now, wow, I didn't know that I thought we weren't supposed to be doing that. I guess you could do Facebook hugs, right? Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. And Troy says he's been home all day. Well, he's up to speed on this social distancing then. Okay. So the Fed dropped the interest rate to 0, and they also bought up a lot of bonds called corrective easing. So I got a phone call here on line 1. Dr. Vince Akimoto, who no doubt will have some good information about the medical news. Right, Vince?
I think so. Although, what am I going to do with these tickets I bought to be part of your live studio audience? I heard that we were supposed to get refunds. Is that correct?
Well, we're checking with management on that, Vince.
All right, legal counsel.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Okay.
Well, so funny you should phrase it exactly that way, because we're getting complaints here at American Medical Center that people are being called by public health regarding their possible exposures to PUIs, people in the hospital that have been identified as positive for coronavirus, are getting confusing and incomplete information. And it's understandable. This is the first day that I guess this is all happening. But my concern is that it's now 5:30, and I'm hoping that public health people didn't think that they were actually going to get to go home tonight. In fact, apparently the governor did declare a state of emergency, and a lot of people who work for public health didn't actually go into work today, so there is really no excuse for them to be tired, and I sure as hell hope they didn't go to movies or go shopping. They were supposed to be working from home. And so I would demand that any public health employee, and for that matter, any GMH employee who stayed home today, they should report to public health and try to man these phones that are supposed to help answer the questions of these now very terrified people who are getting these very ambiguous phone calls to try to explain what to do. So, to back up, apparently there are phone lines now activated to answer questions, but we are getting complaints that the people that are on those phones either don't completely answer the questions, or when people want to call back are not answering the phone, probably because there's only like 2 or 3 people actually doing it. And my great fear is that they're going to go to bed, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that cannot happen, and this is a live television show. And so all of you listening out there, please call whatever person in the government that is making these decisions and complain, because when you get that call and it's confusing, when you're going to try to get a hold of public health and they don't answer the phone, I'm pretty sure that's going to be unacceptable to everybody involved. So my big rant right now is that anybody who stayed home from work today from the government of Guam, particularly if you work for public health, I would urge you to call the public health director and volunteer, and I'm telling you to do this, to help. Because I know that the people that had to go into work today, the ones who are considered essential, which means they are more important than you at this point, they need your help because they're overwhelmed. I've got all kinds of people in the lab that are busting their butt while you're staying at home. I got all kinds of people in the administrator's office who are busting their butt while you're staying at home. And I am talking to you, Mr. and Mrs. Public Health employee that stayed home today. All of you who know that person, because like you know all your relatives who work for GPA and GWA when the water goes out, please politely remind them that it is their job. This is an emergency. Help your fellow public health employees. I'm tired of hearing that there's not enough people to help, because I know, and I am looking at the public health staffing pattern right now with your salaries on it. I know that there's too many of you there. And some of you are politically hired, and I will embarrass you. I will humiliate you, and I will read your name and your salary on the air tomorrow on Tall Tales if you don't go in and help. I'm not threatening. This is a promise. So please, everybody who's knows somebody that works at public health, let them know that I am furious that the lab people and the folks that are trying to handle this pandemic have been abandoned by some low-life public health employees who think today was a hee-hee-ha-ha day. This is not a hee-hee-ha-ha day. This is a pandemic emergency. So get your sweet little persons to work tonight. We need you to get into work tonight. So call your supervisors, call your director, call your governor, but get yourself busy helping the people of Guam, because there are a lot of confused and scared people out there. Hi. You were going to ask me a question, sir?
Well, I'm ready to rule, Vince. Your petition was so persuasive. I am ready to rule. Are we ready to rule, Real Joe Cruz? Yes.
Well, I think the rule issue is, this is a very dangerous time. I would think if you declare a state of emergency and you're basically threatening to take away people's individual rights so that you can save the people of Guam, then I think you have to hold accountable those folks that are actually part of the government. And there were some of them that were dubiously placed into positions because of their political allegiances, and those are the folks that I'm calling out right now. Don't betray your governor, don't betray your directors, don't betray yourselves. If you feel like you're an unessential employee because you didn't go into work today, then cheer yourself up and make yourself useful. Otherwise, I will read your name and your salary, and I will maybe even tell people where you live, because this is a state of emergency, and that's how we roll.
Here's my ruling. If you work at the Department of Public Health, if you are assigned to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, and you were not at your work site today, you will report to Public Health immediately.
I like that.
Next case.
Thank you. I didn't know justice ruled that easily. We've got other cases been languishing on the bench for a while.
Well, your petition was so persuasive, Vincent. I just had to rule from the bench, as it were.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think the government is doing as best it can. We know the governor has probably not slept. I mean, that lady has been everywhere, and she's had several press conferences. So I do want to take this time to rule in favor of Governor Liu's really, I think, incredible stamina. And this is something that, unfortunately, she signed up for. But we do need to applaud and encourage and help her get this done. So as much as we're bad-mouthing a couple of employees that, just needed to be reminded the obvious, hey, look, if you didn't go to work today, then somebody else did work. So why don't you call in and check up on them, maybe bring them a cup of coffee, let them go take a shower. I mean, there's hard work being done in public health, and we're hearing that a lot of people didn't go in today because they felt that they were unessential. Well, then don't come back. We didn't need you anyway, right?
Don't show up at payday if you're not essential.
And apparently payday is this Thursday. I don't know if I'm getting this wrong, but the idea is that this is, it sounds like a lot of nobodies went to work today. And if they're offended that we're calling you that, then, so what? Do something. It's a state of emergency. Make yourself useful. Go pick up some trash. Do something, because we do need this island to recover, and GovGuam employees should not take this as a day off, nor these next 14 days as days off. We need to get some work done there, buddy.
Good call, Vince.
I think the governor is working harder than anybody on island right now, including probably the people on the military bases, because I don't think any of those guys got the day off. In fact, anything, none of them are going to go to sleep. So they're all working harder. How is it that some select few politically appointed GovGuam employees think that they can goof off while their governor is literally working herself to tears? So that can't happen on our watch, and we'll be looking out for you. I mean, if you guys see a bunch of 25-hour vehicles rolling around looking like they got nothing to do, let them know that there's a whole bunch of coronavirus patients all over the island popping up in Guma Tranquilidad, GMH. I mean, they're popping up everywhere now. So if you run, don't come back, because you're not needed. And apparently they were correct in telling you this morning you were unessential.
I'll be looking for your call tomorrow to read those names and salaries, Vince. You will have temporary use of the bully pulpit here at Tall Tales.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks for calling, Vince.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so you finally opened the Joe line, huh? Wow, almost 5:45, and we finally got another Joe here. I was beginning to wonder if the Joes were taking this social distancing so seriously that they figured they couldn't call Tall Tales. Right, another Joe?
Uncle Bob, I was going to say I can't quit the program, but I don't know if that would be politically incorrect. There's that scene for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tall Tales, I can't quit you. So, Bob, what's the deal with the the arrivals from our surrounding neighboring sovereign countries, are they being screened like everybody else, or are they getting this special political treatment from their well, I guess everyone, even U.S. citizens are being screened, right? Everyone's getting the same treatment.
Who was that again? Another Joe?
Anyone who arrives at the airport through the commercial port by boat or airplane, everyone's getting the same screening.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Uncle Bob?
Well, I don't know if that's the case, but it does sound right. It sounds like the way it ought to be done, yeah.
So the Coast Guard should be kept busy as well then, because people will possibly be arriving by boat of some sort. Sorry?
I suppose some would pull up off the coast and wade in. Is that what you're talking about, real joke? Or another
Well,
joke?
they have these guys who are avid sailors. They take these actual sail-powered, wind-powered sailboats across the ocean from, I forget what they call it, ocean crossings, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I have a prediction.
Yeah.
For the next, I'd say, month or two, people are going to be staying indoors out of safety. I predict that the next, the ending of this year, 9 or 10 months from now, we're going to see an increase in our population in the hospitals due to cabin fever. That's my prediction. What do you think, Bob?
Cabin fever. No, I don't know. I don't know if you can get cabin fever in the tropics. I thought cabin fever could only occur when you get snowed in, but maybe you're right, another Joe.
It's a similar situation when you got a lot of pent-up energy and you're confined to a limited area with married couples, so to speak, and nothing else to pass the time. So you're going to see a lot of families with extra brothers and sisters at the end of this year, is my prediction. And maybe even into January, February next year, increase in the birth rate. But what about the hospitals? Are we going to get money from Congress? The president's trying to pass that bill to give out extra money to deal with this virus. Are they going to get the hospital squared away, do you think, about JMH, with that money?
I suspect not. And I don't know. But, getting the hospital squared away is really something that's independent of the coronavirus.
But it would make a pretty good case to argue that they should give us the extra tens of millions, or maybe even a few $100 million to get anything and everything we need to prepare for, to keep the hospital ready and taking care of people, residents, of Guam residents. Would you say it's a pretty strong argument, Uncle Bob?
Well, I think that the focus is going to be on the immediate and on the operational rather than on long-term capital improvements. That's the way I read what's going on in Washington right now.
Okay. All right, Uncle Bob, thanks for your time, and I'll keep listening. And hopefully we got stuff to keep you and Real Joe there busy. All right, thanks, Uncle Bob.
Well, we need to have a good complement of Joes here on Tall Tales. Real Joe Cruz, another Joe, an ordinary Joe. Okay, we're going to break here. We're coming up to the home stretch on Tall Tales.
at the mall as you enjoy your shopping, dining, or entertainment. You could also win 3 great cars from Atkins Kroll and thousands of prizes in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game. Present your mall receipts and have a chance to win the renowned performance Chevrolet Camaro, the unapologetic rugged Toyota 4Runner, or the head-turning Lexus ES350 Luxury. Getaways to Manila, courtesy of Philippine Airlines, plus prizes from Foot Locker and Burger King. The more you shop, the more chance to win in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are in the home stretch at Tall Tales. That means I got about 9 more minutes to wrap up the show. I was going to go into a short lesson on monetary policy informing you why this idea of dropping the interest rate to 0 does not help. Doesn't help anybody, and it hurts, quote, the little guy more than anybody else. It's kind of heavy duty, and it's kind of near the end of the show, so I think I'll save that for tomorrow and take up something a little bit lighter just to wrap up the show. If anybody had an overpowering desire to call in right now, that would be appreciated. This would be a great time if you wanted to hear your voice on our international radio network. This would be the time to do it. But I have something here from the Post. It's a column by Dan Ho. Now, you remember not too long ago, Dan Ho, who has a really different approach to things, actually got a blue star for one of his columns. He tells us a little bit about why he's voting for Bernie, and the answer is kind of surprising, I think. He says, I'm a registered Republican, but I really like Bernie Sanders. It pains me that his former primary rivals see fit to endorse Joe Biden. Never mind that the minorities of color appear to back him up, too. What's that all about? What am I missing? I understand that the Democrat establishment feels Biden has the best chance to beat President Trump, but that doesn't carry any material meaning. What is Joe's plan for America? To be sure, he has one, or says he has his website, but nothing in it can be called groundbreaking or intelligent. It's all regurgitated noise that others have repeatedly used. His most tangible goal is to beat Donald Trump. But that's not really a plan, is it? Back to Bernie, who actually has a singular platform and an admirable one at that. I really, really like he believes universal health coverage for Americans is a basic human right. Obviously, Dan doesn't spend much time listening to Tall Tales. I like that he's willing to go so far as to dismantle the current system in order to achieve, as his website describes, a, quote, single-payer national health insurance program to provide everyone in America with comprehensive health care coverage free at the point of service. To hear Bernie's party mates insist that we need to keep what's in place and expand it so that everyone can access it is pure folly. It sucks. Ask anyone. That's what Dan says. I can name exactly one person in my 52 years on this earth who has been satisfied with their health insurance. It's a guy named Greg who has worked at UPS for 40 years. From what he says, his plan is quite the wonder. His dental insurance, for example, covers dental implants. If you know anything about dental implants, sadly I do, Dan says, then you'll know that a single implanted tooth can run upwards of 10 grand. Greg has received 11 implants so far, 11 mostly covered by insurance. Meanwhile, the rest of us with it that the Democratic majority wants us to keep are grateful for an annual fluoride rinse and a promotional bobbin of dental floss. One can only imagine how fantastic Greg's medical coverage is. Yet, although he has worked over 4 decades at UPS and is well past the age of retirement, Greg has postponed retiring because his Medicare coverage won't be nearly as comprehensive as his work plan. Greg offers us the flip side of great health insurance from employment. That is too good to let go of. Therefore, you work until you don't need it anymore. You work until death. And this is exactly the status quo the Democratic majority feels is worth keeping. Personally, I don't want to work until I die just to make sure that if I break a leg, a doctor might see me. No thanks, Joe, Pete, and Amy, and Corey, and the rest of you. I also greatly admire Bernie for daring to propose that maybe we need to give working people the same breaks that multi-billionaire corporations routinely receive. I'll use Jeff Bezos as an example here. In 2018, Amazon pulled in $232.9 billion in global revenue, yet paid $0 in federal taxes. In fact, they received a tax refund of $129 million. Yet this is in this very same tax year, Uri Raffaele, a Michigan retiree, lost his home for an unpaid tax bill of $8.41. No matter how one might finesse the gap between Bezos and Raffaele, for example, quote, oh, but Jeff Bezos employs thousands of people and keeps transportation and paper companies in the black, and property tax isn't the same as federal tax, that Bernie is willing to fight for some measure of equalization is something that should make Democrats vote him into the primary. It isn't equality, after all, as you were. Isn't equality, after all, the core value of the modern Democrat? Unfortunately, many Dems are willing to abandon Bernie in favor of the fear of losing to Donald Trump. But here's the thing. If anyone can squarely challenge Trump, it's Bernie. Against Trump, Joe is the schmo. Therefore, I will switch party lines and vote for Bernie should he become a Democrat presidential nominee. The prospect of President Sanders is simply much too exciting to remain Republican. However, if Biden gets the nod, then I'm staying in my lane. I know, Trump isn't promising universal health coverage, as is Bernie, nor has he even remotely suggested that he wants to redistribute the personal wealth in this country. My reason is simple. Bernie and Trump are the same in that they threaten the establishment. All branches of the government are firing with Trump in the office, and they will with Bernie. America needs this. It's a sign of a healthy democracy. We cannot return to the complacent peace of a Democrat establishment. So it's a really interesting take on things with that very long predicate to get up to the punchline. And the punchline here for Dan Ho is the Democrat establishment is not what we need. We need guys who will do things differently. And he voted for Donald Trump, and probably is going to wind up voting for Donald Trump again because the Democrats are dead set on voting for Sleepy Joe. So a pretty interesting take on things. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Coronavirus or no coronavirus, there will be a Tall Tales tomorrow, and we will give you the straight poop on what's going on in our community. with coronavirus. The Real Joe Cruz and I will see you then.